Welcome to another episode of Black Girl Diagnosed. I'm Ayanna, aka Phenomenally Autistic. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about my diagnosis story as a Black autistic woman. I was late diagnosed only about 9 years ago, and I'm a millennial, so that's like the geriatric timeline for autism diagnosis. So I'm just going to start at the beginning. Um, Everybody knew I was different. My family, friends of the family, everybody always knew that I was different. And one of the reasons that I think that it kind of slipped through the cracks was because I'm an artist. So naturally, all artists that I know were eccentric and we sometimes were in our own world. So I can distinctly remember being a child and not speaking a lot. Um, People used to say, "Oh, she's so mean." I said hi to her. She didn't say hello back. So everyone knew I was different. I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. She would always tell people, just leave her alone. That's how she is. Leave her alone. In the Black community, autism still isn't as known and people aren't as educated about autism in the Black community. So you have to look back as to when I was growing up as a millennial, people didn't think about autism, especially when it came to Black people, especially when it came to little Black autistic girls. And as far as communication as a child, I always communicated with art. I actually drew pictures before I spoke words, before I became verbal. I drew pictures. So that was my main form of communication. Art has always been my main form of communication. As a child, I did plays. I was always in some type of dance program all the way into my teenage years, and it spilled into my adult years. So, with that being like my background, I feel like that's another reason why it was able to slip through the cracks. And it slipped through that I was autistic, but everybody knew I was different. But again, back then, people didn't think of Black people when they think of autism. People still don't think of Black people, especially Black women. They think of little white boys. And they also forget that autism doesn't end when you're 18. You're autistic your entire life, from the moment you're born to the moment you go into the ground. So you are autistic your entire life. So the way I got diagnosed was I had already been seeing a psychiatrist. I was already going to therapy because everyone just said I was crazy. Everyone was always just like, "Oh, she's crazy. Look how she acts when she goes off, aka having meltdowns." But we didn't know they were meltdowns. Everyone just thought that I was just this gonna explode at any moment and that I was disrespectful, that I was mean. So it came to a point where I was institutionalized. I was put into the psychiatric hospital against my will. And I spent about 3 months there. So I'm in this hospital for 3 months, and I had already been there for 2 months, 2.5 months before someone said, let's evaluate her. So the evaluation that I got, it wasn't just for autism. They were just looking for something. They just wanted to see what was wrong with me. Mind you, before all of this, I had already been diagnosed in the same hospital as being bipolar, which I wasn't. So they diagnosed me as being bipolar and they put me on lithium. If anybody takes lithium, you should definitely get your blood work checked as often as you can. If you don't take lithium and your doctor suggests it, I highly recommend that you get the fuck off that shit because I was put on lithium and it destroyed my body. I went from weighing 137 pounds to weighing like 237 pounds. My thyroid exploded, so like I don't have a thyroid anymore. Um, I developed another autoimmune disease, which I already had four autoimmune diseases. So I developed another disease and it stopped my cycle, which is not normal. You're supposed to have a fucking cycle. So if you can avoid being put on lithium, or if you're on lithium already, you really have to monitor your health and monitor your body and know your body. I knew something wasn't right and so much was wrong, all because I was misdiagnosed as being bipolar. Because at the time, they didn't take that extra step to see, well, maybe she's autistic. And this happens so much with Black autistic women. Like, yes, there are bipolar Black women, but every Black woman is not bipolar. Black women are angry, not all the time, but we have every right to be angry. Look at the way we're treated in this country. But I was none of those things. I wasn't angry. I might have been confused, and it could have. I was overstimulated all the time. And I feel like that is another reason why people looked at me and they said she was mean, because I was always overstimulated, but I didn't have a word for it and I didn't know what it was. So back to being in the hospital. They were just putting me on all types of different medications. At one time, I was up to taking 40 pills a day, about 20 in the morning and 20 at night, and maybe a few as needed medications throughout the day. So the average amount of medication that I was on was 40 pills a day. So I'd been in this psychiatric hospital for 2 months already, and then somebody finally said, let's give her an assessment. So they evaluated me, and the things that they came back with was that I was autistic, that I had ADHD, that I was dyslexic, that I had developmental delays. It was so much things, so much stuff. And I was just looking like, first of all, when they said I was autistic, I was like, I'm not autistic. That's for white people. Yes, I said that because that's what I believed. I was ignorant about what autism was, what autism was supposed to look like, who could be autistic, who's not autistic. And I had never, that was the last thing I ever would have thought, that they'd come back and be like, she's autistic. And another thing that really irks my nerves is when people are like, well, how could your parents have missed it? I'm a millennial. Again, growing up, why would they look and be like, let me take my little black daughter to see if she's autistic, when people in the black community didn't know anything about autism? So back to being officially diagnosed. I did the assessment, I did the evaluation, and it was either 2 or 3 days. I can never pinpoint, but it was either 2 or 3 days of extensive testing, a few hours each day. They had me doing all types of things. If you ever done the assessment, you know that it is very frustrating. You know that it takes a lot out of you, and you are going to be emotionally exhausted when you're finished. But the two women who did my evaluation, they were both so lovely. They let me take breaks. They made sure I was okay. Once they were done with me the second day, I believe, they spoke to my dad and they asked my dad, they said, how was she as a child? What type of behaviors did she display? And he just told them like how I was. I was withdrawn. I didn't speak much, very picky eater. He tell them that like he told me the story too, that I would draw a picture and if I went out of the line one, not even by an inch, I would rip up the whole picture and have to start over. He was like, we'd have to be somewhere, and she'd sit there and she wouldn't move until she got this picture right. So it was just like little things that added up. Now my dad looks back and he's like, yeah, that really makes sense. That makes sense now. And he also told them that I had very like black and white thinking, like something's either fair or it's not fair. He told them about my sound sensitivities. I've never liked a lot of noise. I've never liked people raising their voice. I come from a big family. My grandmother had 10 children. She had 3 sets of twins and 4 single births. So spending time with my grandmother, my parents were young when me and my brother were born, so they still lived at home. So we had a big family, but I did spend a lot of time with my grandmother, and she would have to tell her other kids, please stop, because Yanni does not like all of this yelling. I couldn't deal with yelling. I had anxiety all the time. Again, at the time, didn't know what anxiety was. I had PTSD at this time. I don't think they were saying people who weren't veterans had PTSD. So I had all of this going on and nobody knew. And it wasn't until I became an adult and I really got to the point where I couldn't function in day-to-day life. And then I was hospitalized because everybody just thought I was crazy, that I got my autism diagnosis. And the things that I say to people all the time is that even though when I got diagnosed, I was in denial. When they told me I was autistic, again, I said that I'm not autistic. That shit's for white people. That's what I said because I didn't believe that black people, black women were autistic. If anything, I was like, all right, well, I've seen black autistic boys, but I've never seen black autistic girls. So I just couldn't believe it. So even after being diagnosed, I was in denial for a good 2 years and I didn't accept it, which for me, I felt like I just put myself through torture that didn't need to go through. I didn't want to tell anybody. Nobody knew but me and my dad. I was embarrassed. I didn't want anyone to know. My mama had just passed away, so she didn't even get to learn what was wrong with me, even though my parents never said anything was wrong with me, but she never got to learn like why I was different. And that's something that I always say, and I always think about that. And I'm just like, I just wish that she would have been here to know why I was different, so she would never question her parenting or think that it was something she did as to why I was so different. And just to know that there was a name for what I was, what I am. And even now, once I start accepting it, life became beautiful. Life became easier. I was able to live in my truth. I was able to walk in my truth. And these are the type of things that people don't understand is that when society looks at you like you're diseased, or when society looks at you like you ain't shit, it kind of makes you feel like you don't belong here, and it makes you feel like you ain't shit. So I had to take a step back and look and see what I was doing to myself. I'm like, look what you're doing to yourself. You're putting yourself through pain that you don't have to put yourself through, all because you don't want to accept the fact that you're autistic. I accepted the fact that I was autistic, and it was the most beautiful thing. I loved myself more. I became more expressive. Like, I like to express myself through fashion. Once I was diagnosed and I knew why I was so different, I wasn't scared anymore to express myself with fashion. My art became more vibrant. Started to create even more art because that block that I had up that I wasn't worth shit, it went away because now there's a name for what I am. I'm autistic. I'm not broken. I'm not a freak. I'm not a weirdo. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just autistic. So just the fact that Black children on average are diagnosed 3 years later than their white peers is a huge problem. And I think that society doesn't see that because that's how Black people are treated. We are treated like we don't matter. What the visibility that Black autistic voices need and the centering that Black autistic voices need is needed now more than ever because there are so many people out there who don't have the answers that they're looking for. There are so many people out there who are wondering, why are you different? And when you don't know why you're different, it creates so much self-hate. I hated myself. I had 7 suicide attempts because I hated myself and I didn't know why I was here and I didn't know why I was different because I didn't have a word for what I was. So I got a comment on Instagram when I said many more Black women are being diagnosed as autistic, and I love that for myself. And somebody was like, why are you happy about that? That's not normal. You know what? What's not normal is hating yourself. What's not normal is not knowing why you're on this earth. What's not normal is waking up every day and wishing you didn't wake up. Those things are normal. Learning about yourself, learning why you're different, that's normal. And it's life changing because it changed my life. So I just feel like if you feel like you're autistic, or even if you have other type of neurodivergency, go to the doctor and ask them what steps you can take to get diagnosed. Every doctor is different. I don't have the traditional diagnosis story. Like I said, I was diagnosed in a psychiatric hospital, and it took one doctor of color to look at me and say, I think she's autistic. Let's test her. Let's give her a full evaluation and let's see what we find. And they found a shitload of things. So I feel like you should always trust your instincts if you are thinking about trying to find out if you're neurodivergent, trying to find out if you're autistic. Don't let the things that other people say affect your decision. Don't let the things other people say sway you because the people have a lot of comments and they're like, look at you, Black women, y'all learned a new word and now all y'all want to be autistic. Because nobody wants to be autistic. That is the way you were born. And if you're born autistic, you have the right to know because then you have the right to get the services that you need to help you fucking flourish. And before I wrap it up, I just also want to say that when I got diagnosed as autistic, the hospital did not give me any resources. They put me on risperidone, which is another medication that fucked up my body. And they was like, okay, yeah, you're autistic, bye. And that was it. It was like she been here long enough, get the bitch out of here. So I was just like, okay, well, what now? You just tell me I'm autistic and throw me out into the world. What am I supposed to do with this information? My dad actually had to get online, get on the internet and see what types of programs there were, what type of resources there were, what type of therapies there were. And I'll share that for me, the types of therapies that helped me function, that helped me cope were CBT therapy, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, and DBT therapy, and CBT therapy, sorry, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. My favorite of the two is cognitive behavioral because CBT, it helps me stay mindful. And when you stay mindful and you're only worrying about what is going on at the present moment, as an autistic person, that is probably one of the best things that you can do because our mind is always on 100. If you're an overthinker, imagine being autistic and 10 times 10. That's how you're going to overthink things. So that's basically my diagnosis story. I always tell it to people because I feel like we all have different experiences, but if there's just maybe one similarity or something, somebody watching, they're like, hey, well, I go through that, and this is how I felt most of my life. Maybe I should get tested. I'm all for people getting tested to be autistic. I know some people are saying that we're romanticizing autism. Celebrating who you are is not romanticizing anything. Finding out who you are. None of that is romanticizing anything. Everyone has the right to know who they are. So it was just me today. Thank you for tuning in to Black Girl Diagnosed. Share with a friend, tell a relative, and give me feedback and let me know what you want to hear me talk about with my guests on Black Girl Diagnosed. Take care.